This content is brought to you in part by Supreme Auctions, the only luxury auction company recommended by the Institute. Supreme Auctions is widely recognized as the first auction company to design a program to work alongside and in partnership with luxury real estate professionals and their clients. Go to supremeauctions.com to learn more.
Hi, David. It's great to have you here. And, when we talked about today, we've had you as a guest before, and we've lived through a very different time now. And when we talk about agent domination, you are the first thing that always comes to mind for me. And so when I was thinking about what did I want to dig deeper in with you on, it really is that. So tell us a little bit about you.
So I was, I grew up in the advertising industry in San Francisco, and many of us, which this is really going to tie into how our industry changed simultaneously, and that is when the world went digital. So what most people don't remember, the old MLS books, there was no such thing as going to a computer or your iPhone to find a listing. It was printed and delivered to your office every Monday. And so when that changed, when the digital world changed, it also dramatically changed my role in the advertising industry, which was digital film. We were selling regular film and everybody else was going to digital. And so I, as most boys do, I called my mom, who's been an agent for 37 years. And I said, what do I do? And she said, why don't you become an agent? And so I did. And I was in Marin County, California. It was probably one of the most expensive communities there. And I was probably I was 30 years old and I'm 61 now. So and after 2.5 years, I was the #1 RE/MAX agent. And my last listing 27 years ago was $5.5 million.
Wow.
And I just didn't like, that side of the business. I just didn't, it didn't fit. I mean, I could do it just for the money, but it was not rewarding. So anyway, long story short, I decided I would start a marketing company and I would teach everybody how I became a #1 agent in certain communities in Marin County and then South Florida. And then, of course, now we're located in San Diego, California. We have offices in New York and Vancouver. So that's how I got started. And one of the things we realized early on was that there were very distinct patterns when this transition, which is really great. I think I've ever talked about or heard anybody talk about that transition from print to digital within our industry. And I walked through that. I watched agents who stuck with their print materials. And then I watched agents who went after different ideas and which I love exploring different ideas, but went after really the internet and all that it had to offer. And it sounded really, really good and fairly inexpensive compared to print. And I watched agents go who absolutely dominated. I'll give you an example. Trip to Chawala is an agent in South Florida, Boca Raton. And she's been in the print world with us for almost 20 years. And she still, to this day, dominates that entire market by 50%. If we really just honestly think about what's the most commonly asked question in a listing presentation? Have you ever sold anything in this neighborhood? I mean, that is the most common. And according to NAR, 78% of homeowners say they would work with a neighborhood expert if there was one. If we know that the homeowner is very much concerned with how well do you know our neighborhood. So that is, if we know that, I mean, watch, it's really simple, right? Especially for you and I, anybody with about a little bit of intellect goes, okay, the homeowner is looking for a neighborhood expert and 78% of homeowners say they would work with a neighborhood expert. So what's the challenge here? How do we make you the neighborhood expert, right? It's pretty easy.
So David, I do want to kind of break into this. This is super interesting. And I want to take one kind of giant step back and talk about what do you mean when you say the print world?
So in the, if we can go back, for those of us that are old enough, if we can go back to pre-internet. So I think 11 years ago, the iPhone came out. And really about 20 years ago, the internet got really powerful. We lost our MLS books. Prior to that, the only way to really get in front of a client was print. So magazines used to be huge. I mean, 25 years ago, everybody was in magazines, or the Sunday paper, that's print. Direct mail with postcards and some interesting strategies I'll share with you about property brochures later when you're digging out the secrets. So we'll share that with you as well. But so that's the print world.
Got it. Yeah.
how do we stay in front of somebody on a consistent basis? And more importantly, I think if we keep this thought in our mind when we're marketing a particular neighborhood, how do we stay in front of the most amount of people within that neighborhood? And it just clearly can't be done with the internet. How we shifted from the print world to the digital world was pretty simple. There's a statement out there that is very accurate, and that is 97% of homeowners start their search online. When you dig further into that, according to NAR, less than 5% of sellers actually select their agent online. That's like online, like everything. That's like social media, Facebook, internet, your website, all combined. The best we've managed to do in 25 years is 5%. So if I don't really, as a business person, want 5% of the market share, right? If I want to farm a neighborhood, I want 20, 30, 40%. I've had as high as 68% market share in a single community for one agent. Right? That's what I'm looking for. And if I'm trying to do it with the internet, and that's how we shifted, was the internet. So it makes common sense. If 97% of homeowners go to 7-Eleven at 6 o'clock in the morning to list their house, guess where everybody would be? We also know that of the 5%, 7% of buyers actually find their agent online. Those numbers are somewhat distorted. They're closer to 3 and 4% if you take out retirement communities. So if you remove South Florida, Palm Springs, Scottsdale, and Phoenix, you remove those, it actually gets lower because people move there and they don't know anyone. They're retiring, and or they're on vacation and they decide they want to retire there, and they just go, running around. So that's the why. That's how we shifted from, like, literally, Diane, 20 years ago, I could go to any community in the country and name the community, and you'd name an agent. Everybody would name the same agent. It was like, wow. I mean, that's what we call market share, right?
Yeah.
That's what market share is all about. That doesn't happen much anymore, unless you are direct mail. So I can, like Naples, Florida, there's not a single community in Naples, Florida that isn't dominated by somebody who does direct mail. And the same is true in Boca Raton, which is where we started, right? So those are two really big markets for us. Denver's another one. I mean, there's a good 30% of all neighborhoods that are dominated are clients that use direct mail with good quality information, which we'll probably dig into later. So it just can't be cheappostcards.com and, some of the inexpensive, I call them template-driven sites, not to mention any names, but I think that it's important that, the quality of the piece. I think so people go, okay, all right, David, all right, I get it as direct mail. So I'll just go to cheappostcards.com and mail. And, they mail a piece of paper like this, which is garbage. It has to be good content, and it has to be neighborhood specific.
You're talking about the upper tier, right? And so how someone goes from attracting attention using different means in one neighborhood, how does luxury differ? Right? Like how does that person differ? Not the house, the person making the decision.
The
homeowner? House doesn't make a decision. Yeah. No,
the homeowner doesn't. Anyway, so very, very clearly in the real estate world, there are two groups of people. There's the luxury market and non-luxury. So we've talked about the non-luxury market. And the non-luxury market, their number one concern is, has you ever sold anything in this neighborhood? The luxury market is, have you ever sold anything in this price point? Which kind of gets us to this catch-22, because if you haven't, how do you get it? And then how do you overcome it? So there's ways that we can talk about that, about, actually work going after that particular style listing. But the other side of it is that if we work in Boca Raton, you say that's an upper end market. I work with Rich Ralston in Boynton Beach, which is right next door to Boca Raton. Literally, they border each other. And Rich Ralston out of Boynton Beach does 1,600 homes, and he does $65,000 retirement condos. So the same marketing and the same quality, like don't send gold foiled pieces to a $65,000 community, but don't send cheap postcards either, because those people have just as much pride. And Rich has been a client for probably 15 years. He is a single agent who outsells 7 on-site agents, and it's a gated community.
Wow.
You can't drive through. Literally outsells all 7.
So the strategy is when you say he does 1,600 homes. Tell me what that means.
So for our clients and our belief system, and that is when Richie says he wants to do 1,600 homes, we have a team here. So Richie literally just says, David or Real Marketing, we want to market this particular neighborhood. First thing we do is have a research department. There's 4 people in there that are literally going to go in and download his MLS and download that community. I think when we talk about strategy, and especially, as we get into the spring market, a lot of us are starting a great new strategy. Is our strategy ready, aim, fire? Instead of most of the time in this industry, it's ready, fire, aim. And there's not just in this industry, it's in a lot of industries. So not to pick on us by any shape or much. So first things we do is we research the neighborhood. Then we go back to Rich and say, okay, there's no agent with more than 3 listings in this particular community. There were 49 sales. So we think it's an absolute wide open opportunity. Now, had we done the research and come back and 2 agents had 70% of the market share, I'd say, Richie, let's look at the neighborhood next door. Let's keep looking until we find that non-dominated neighborhood.
So that's a great service you provide.
Yeah,
right?
And it's all
you're really
included.
A partner for people. Mm-hmm.
We're an absolute team. Unbeknownst to many, and it's the best kept secret in the industry, right?
Yeah.
We have, and all of our business, we have 1,600 clients. All of our clients are by referral.
Yeah.
We have if you send us something, we have a content writing team that literally will go through and write content for you. And then here's a crazy thing and I have a fun story because I'm at convention and somebody says, there was a mistake on my postcard. Come on, we do 500,000 pieces last month. I gotcha. Sorry, my apologies. Did you proof it? And they go, yes, but you say you're the best in the world, so you should have caught it. And I'm thinking, in the printing world, that doesn't fly because every printer will tell you sign off on it, you own it.
Yeah.
But that made a lot of sense to me. I mean, I felt that in my heart that, oh, wow, this person was right. So at that point, we started hiring proofreaders and content writers.
Well, and what that means in luxury, like when I define luxury, I define it as it must be mistake-free.
It has to be perfection.
Yeah. That's just a major turnoff. So, this kind of unveiling your secret sauce here. Yep. So step 1 is research the neighborhood. Okay.
Yes.
And research the surrounding neighborhoods because you're really trying to find an opportunity to dominate.
Right. You want to take an opportunity to dominate, and most of the time an agent will make a choice on emotion, right? Which I totally get.
Right.
But I'm a business by the numbers guy. So if you say, hey, David, I want to do something in Austin, Texas, and I'm looking at this zip code. And so we pull the zip code, break it up by neighborhood, and I see 2 communities of 1,000 homes. This one has 50 sales. This one has 40. Watch this. They both have 50 sales. This one's average price point is $750,000, and this one is $650,000. No dominant agent, neither one. Okay, business decision, guys. We're going with this one. Right? Mm-hmm. Pretty simple. So if you get the emotion out and just run with the numbers, it's a really, really solid.
And you
strategy.
chose this one that was 750 and 50 homes.
Well, they both say 1,000 homes. They both had a 5% turnover rate. So they both sold 50 homes sold in both communities.
Okay.
And there's no agent with more than 3 listings in either community. Yep. What's the next factor? Let's drill it down.
Price point. Yep.
Price point. This one's $100,000 average price point, higher than this one. This also brings us into that conversation about how do we creep into the luxury and conquer that objection that you don't have a listing in my price point.
Right. And, one of the things that I just thought of that I have to share is, as we're kind of unpacking, number 1 being research, this is not a magic bullet, right? What this really is opportunity, but it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. Right. There's work involved in that and decisions. And that's it's one of my favorite quotes.
I love that.
Yeah, it's real work. And I think the most important part of that is successful people look to outsource work that someone else can do. Okay. Yep. Not everything. We outsource certain pieces of what we do at the Institute, and we outsource it to people who can do it better. And so when you step back and say, okay, if the first step is research and decision, right? Yep. Okay, now we're going to go with the $750,000 neighborhood because the research supports that.
Correct.
Okay, so then what's next? We've decided on the neighborhood.
Right. So you decide on neighborhood. So that one of the things that you really want that's really, really important in direct mail is the actual appeal, the visual appeal of the piece I get. Right. If anybody's ever seen a brochure on a Mercedes, S-Class or a BMW 7 Series or 750, that brochure is just, stunning. Like you pick it up and you go, I want to drive that car. Right. Now you pick up a car maybe on a Kia, and that's not the same messaging. Right. That's coming across. So when we look at a neighborhood, we're looking for a photo that everybody recognizes. Now in gated communities, it's incredibly simple. It's the front gate. But most of our clients are not gated. We have one of our biggest clients is in Virginia. She does about 6,000 homes. She has neighborhoods. Virginia, it's like town. Right. Town's been there since the 1800s. Right. So a beautiful picture down the town. All right. So moral of the story. First things first is you want a good quality photograph. Then you need quality statistics and analytics on the neighborhood on a monthly basis. And it can't be every other month. It can't be quarterly. We've tried every formula under the sun. And ironically, the best formula is 8 mailers in the first 4 months and then monthly. Some companies will tell you 2 or 3 mailers a month for a year. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to sell postcards. Mm-hmm. Because anyway, and I could do the same. Yeah. No, it's
and this is tried and true. You've done millions of pieces over time.
Diane, we did 500,000 pieces last month.
Wow. And you're not. I have to say this, right? I know you. I've had dinner with you. This is multiple times. You're not a massive monolith company. You're available. Right. And the key with our, the Institute working with you is that, right? We want our members to understand that there are companies that have multiple offices around the country.
Yep.
So that in the mail world, that matters, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're not paying extra for Canadian, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a really great place to dig into this idea of quality statistics. Again, dressed in overalls. Right. So we do the research.
Yep.
We know the neighborhood.
Yep.
And we come in and we pick the visual icon.
Yep.
And then we back that visual icon up with statistics, because what we know about people in the upper tier is they want information.
Yep.
They want you to teach them.
And Diane, all the way down to the lower tier, I can imagine, that my income says I can afford a $65,000 retirement condo. And, I certainly still want to know if the value of that's going up. Is there any equity in there because maybe I'm running low on retirement funds?
Right.
So all price points, but for the luxury, it's critical, and it has to be accurate, and it has to be, again, it has to be presented in a highly professional way. If you think about the luxury market as a CEO, if I walk into a $10 million company and I look at the corporate brochure, what does that look like, right? When I go back to work at IBM and I'm the CEO, what is that? What does my charts look like that I give to my investors who have billions of dollars? Does it look the same, right? And we have, we have 51 employees and 20 designers, and it's just, we have the most incredible, what we call new design, which your company works a lot with our new design department. There's probably 6 or 7 people in there. They're just the most skilled, talented, and nice people. That's a real big thing for me. I don't want you working with somebody
jerks.
No jerks, please.
So there, will your staff help kind of ferret out what the visual icon is?
Sometimes absolutely.
It's hard when you're so close to something, it's hard. So you're gonna provide that level of what I'll call consulting to get to the research, to get to the statistics. So even though it's boring, let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about the importance of, in today's world where everyone gets information, how do you give accurate information and how do you position it? And in fact, what does that then do to the person providing it?
Got it. And so if we go back, I'm always going to revert back to the number one concern is neighborhood expert. So every month, Diane sends me this beautiful piece into the neighborhood. It's a photo I recognize. It's something I drive by. I open it up. I'm like, wow. All right, my house, honey, the house has gone up, 8%. what does that look like compared to the other price points in the neighborhood? And, oh, okay, well, here's a graph that shows the highs, the lows, the mediums, right? Everything that you'd want to know. We have 4 different graphs on our market reports. And what most people don't know, this is one of the secrets. The market report is set up to affect all of the personality types. So that's why there's 4 different graphs on there, which most people think, oh, it's just a waste. It's not.
And what is this market report is what you've coined, because our listeners look at the Institute's luxury market report, which is really at a higher market level. These things you're talking about are 1,600 homes, 800 homes.
So the market report is really a 4-page printed on cardstock, high quality piece, personalized with the homeowner's name on it. And so another nice advantage of when the digital world came out that affected the print world was this thing called variable data. And it's easiest described by all of us have received a check in the mail from a credit card company that, $50,000, Diane Hartley, cash this today,
Right.
That's called, well, because your name
Variable
is on it.
Data. Yeah.
Variable data. It actually, and everybody just Google it yourself, but Google variable data response rate. And you're going to see that Diane could mail a piece and I could mail a piece, but if I include the homeowner's name throughout the piece, like in the call to action, I don't say dear neighbor, I say Tom and Susie. If you'd like your home professionally marketed, which is what we're portraying, right?
Right.
Call me today. And then Diane says, dear neighbor, you want your house professionally marketed. I should technically get 7 times more listings than Diane, just for that one fact alone. So there's another secret. You go to the instant printer on the corner or the template driven site, they don't have that software. I mean, we literally have 2 people who sit here 40 hours a week and do nothing but make those things happen.
Yeah.
Like take a whole mailing list in Vancouver and merge it with 3,700 pieces like from Elizabeth McQueen, and they all match up and the names are all correct and the addresses match the names. It's crazy software.
I love this. And this just piques my curiosity because it's another one of those separating factors. And as you can imagine in my job, I get asked a lot, oh, what's the difference between selling in the luxury market or the upper tier or however you want to define it. But, typically the top 10 or 20% of the neighborhood, like what's the difference? And fundamentally, it's that the real estate professional is competing with the BMW, with the marketing from Cartier or Tiffany inside of that neighborhood, right? And so variable data has been around a very long time at those super high-end brands.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can remember my father getting a Cadillac brochure, and in the color that he always buys, which was black.
So in the kind of your world, one of the X factors is that, right? That ability to compete with the other things that are sitting and getting these people's attention.
Correct. Right? We're not going to get outclassed. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
We are never outclassed.
And, you have another strategy, and I'm going to kind of get to the third thing here in a minute, but this idea of the visual appeal of the piece, it's heavily proofed. It's going to be right. It's going to be full of quality statistics, and it's going to be meaningful to, in your graphs and charts, the all different types of personalities who are going to pick that up because people consume information very differently. If you put words in front of me and a graph in front of me, I'm going to look at the graph.
You and I both.
That's just our brain. And so this idea of being able to see all of those things. And when you begin to look at how agents break through,
right? One
of your other Davidisms is do that at the price point just below it's expected at.
Right. Exactly.
So can you kind of talk about that strategy? Sure. Because, if I'm selling in Dallas, Texas, where I live, the $500,000 level, how do I get to the $1 million? And your answer to that is go through 750 to get there, right?
Right. So to explain this, and I do this, as I do seminars all over the world, and I'll always I'll hold up a beautiful property brochure and say, okay, guys, at what price point do all of you, like literally all the agents in the room, agree that we will do these beautiful 4 or 6 or 8 page property brochures? And somebody always comes up with a number. So if you're in Sandy, if you're in your part of Dallas, it could be Well, we do that at
Million.
900,
Yeah.
$1 million. If it's in Naples, Florida, that's 400. Minnesota, it's 250. Vancouver's $2.5 million.
Right.
So if this is the bar, if it's anywhere from 400,000 to 2.5 million, where we decide to do really high quality marketing, who's right? Right. So there's an interesting thought here.
Right.
Who's right? So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to use the $1 million price point because it's an easy number to banter around in the luxury market. If I'm looking to break into the $1 million market, and I haven't had any sales in there yet, I know that all of the other agents in town think that it's absolutely ridiculous to spend $200 on a $750,000 listing because luxury in our market is $1 million. That's where we do good marketing. Anything below that, they're going to call you crazy. But has anybody got a calculator and do the math on a $750,000 listing, even at 2.5%, and you spent a couple $100 on a high quality brochure? Watch what happens. Okay, so just visualize that you're in a $750,000 neighborhood and you and your partner are talking about selling. It's a conversation, right? People don't go, honey, Diane, call the agent. Let's sell the house. Right? It's a conversation that goes on for a couple of months. You're driving home. It's Sunday afternoon. There's 3 open houses in your neighborhood. Tell me you're not stopping. Unequivocally, you are going to stop. That's your competition. You want to see it. Watch what happens with our agents. And this is just one of those little secrets. You go to all 3 open houses, and what do 99%? First of all, we're in the below luxury market. So there'll be no quality brochure. More than likely, there'll be some paper brochure printed off at the office copier in 2 of the listings. If it's even that, it could even be an MLS printout, which I think you could lose your license and go to jail for a year.
Right.
That's just my opinion. Right.
No fear there.
No fear there. No, absolutely.
So
it is. And so you go to these 3 open houses, and 2 of them have garbage marketing, and one of them has a beautiful 4-page brochure. If we, first of all, and you also are the neighborhood expert, so you have, in addition to your property brochure, you have a market report at the open house demonstrating that you are the neighborhood expert. And if they want to buy a house in this neighborhood, they best go through you. Right, so I love open house strategies. I know a lot of my agents are just so successful that they'll have assistants do it. But I've had an agent, I have an agent who made $250,000 doing just that for a very successful agent.
One of the things that you've talked about, I think you and I just over dinner, and I made a mental note when we were talking about it that I wanted this on a podcast, and that is this idea that the easiest way to break through the psychological barriers of the price points are to recognize that when you serve someone well and they choose you again,
right,
they're going to take you to that next price point, right, David?
Exactly. So when I sold my condo, and as you know, my beautiful wife Sandy and I bought a house, right? So we went from what was just below luxury to just above, and that's just a little bit. And in San Diego, that doesn't take much,
right?
But when we did that, we went, and our agent, I'm an agent, licensed agent, but I used an agent because I'm smarter than that.
You're right. You're a professional.
Yeah,
professionals hire professionals. Yeah,
exactly. And professional agents hire professional marketing companies. I just like to throw that out there.
There you go.
But anyway, Angela, who was our agent, she now got to go from this price point to this, from the 800,000 to 1.5. That was her. Now she's got the 1.5 in that particular neighborhood. I can then teach her how to take that 1.5 and leverage it to start jumping into a higher price point neighborhood.
Right.
So Angela's never going to give up her bread and butter. She's marketing the $750,000 neighborhood. It's 800 homes. She's making $250,000 a year. Now, all of a sudden, one of those sellers in her $750,000 neighborhood sell and go to buy a house, and they buy a $1.5 million house. Especially in this market, that's really easy to do because interest rates are so low.
Right.
And they go buy this 1.5. Now, Angela can go, okay, David, how many homes are in this neighborhood over here? Well, it's a higher end neighborhood. It's probably that's homes. Angela, there's 400 homes in there. Great. So let's start marketing the 400 homes in that neighborhood. And we're going to start with the fact that you have successfully represented a seller within that price point and within that neighborhood. You can literally, and I have a client, Greg Newman, who did this 67 times. He went into more neighborhoods, 67 different neighborhoods.
That's unbelievable.
Elizabeth McQueen in Vancouver, 35. 35, right? And she just secured a $24 million listing that she sold for $23 million in 3 weeks off the market report. Highest price in 2.5 years in Vancouver for any home.
Wow.
Yeah. And, and that's a luxury market where now this is a really good thing that we should talk about at some point, and that is consistency. And Elizabeth marketed this community for a solid 2.5 years before she got anything. That's some stick-to-itiveness.
Yes.
But she knew, and the market in Vancouver was very soft, it was horrible. And she knew when it turned, she'd be the one. And so not only she got the $24 million listing, we took it, did an insane brochure, probably 16 pages. And guess what? We mailed it to the whole neighborhood. And it was like, that's like $5 a piece. What are you, crazy? Guess what happened next week? She got a $14 million listing.
Yep.
So she's laughing to the bank and you're laughing at her.
Strategy, right? Yep. And dressed in overalls and looks like work. So I want to kind of again come back and step by step this, right? So because you and I get going. So the first thing you talked about was they ask if you're a neighborhood expert, and then they asked if you sold at this price point before. You've answered those, right?
Yep.
How do you become a neighborhood expert? Step one, research.
Correct.
Hire a company or learn to do it yourself, right? Teach yourself about what these things are that you need to understand to make informed decisions. The information is out there. It's just getting very, very specific with it. But the second thing, and this is probably my most favorite thing that you offer, and that is you come back and once you've chosen the neighborhood, you come in with quality statistics with a market report. And David, the integrity that your company has, and you will not put two agents into the same neighborhood with a market report.
Not a chance.
Right.
No.
So let's talk about the why there, right? Like, so you will walk away because we've talked about it. You've had the opportunity and you say, nope, this neighborhood is with this client. And first, why is that so important for the agent?
Well, for the agent, if I provide you with something that is substantially better than what your competition is using, and you start getting business, and then I take it to them, well, then I'm diluting the market, And I have a personal integrity issue. I honestly, I'll tell you the truth. So Greg Newman, most people know, he's been a client of mine. He's mailed every single month 10,000 pieces for over 12 years. Absolutely insane. And he'll be the first to tell you that if he had only can do one thing, what would it be? He would tell you it's the market report. Mm-hmm. But I got a call from his competitor the first 3 months we were doing it 12 years ago. And I told her, no, she can't do it. And she went off like screaming at me.
Sure. And
how I'm going to go out of business. And I said to her, jokingly, I said, Francine, I said, when I get to Canada, I'll do it in French.
Right.
Which was pretty funny because I actually got to Canada. It was Vancouver and it's still in English, but nonetheless.
No, but I think that speaks to the importance of the quality and the ability for the just don't dilute.
Right. Yeah.
And kind of the last point that I'm hopeful we can dig a little bit deeper into is one of the statistics that I just hate, and it's true, is that, oh gosh, if I could find a neighborhood expert, right, there's that issue, but then it's the repeat business, right? The how do you make sure that when the person you sold the $750,000 house to, that's going to jump up into the $1.5 million home, right, they call you, because something like only 10% do. And so how does the strategy fit into that as well, right? The keeping yourself in front of people.
The personal sphere piece is the way to do it, but I'm going to give you the actual statistics because I claim to be business by the numbers. According to NAR, again, 85% of homeowners say they would buy their next house with the agent that sold them their last house. So your question is, how do we ensure that happens if 85% would do it? Here's the sad part of the statistic. 75% of the homeowners said they couldn't remember who the agent was. Here's the challenge, ladies and gentlemen. You're agents. You work your backside off. You don't sleep. You're crazy hard workers. And you do such phenomenal work for a client. And in your mind, you should be remembered for life. And I get it. I was there. I was in your seat. I watched my mom for 30 years, right? Give her blood, sweat, and tears into this. And I'd be damned if the neighbor down the street didn't remember who she was. But the truth of the matter is, it's not my opinion. 75% don't. So we have a personal sphere piece. Unlike if you're looking to create a marketing campaign, a strategy for a particular neighborhood where you have no business, it has to be monthly. There's no way around it. On a personal sphere, you could actually do it quarterly. Like every 3 months, if I sold Diane your home, and every 3 months you got a beautiful piece from me showing the statistics of Dallas and the neighborhoods around your particular area, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, now I remember David, right? Because you're not going to sell for 3, 4, 5 years. So in 3 or 4 or 5 years, you've gotten 20 some odd pieces from me every 3 months, like clockwork.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm staying, and it's fairly inexpensive. The crazy part is that's really inexpensive.
It's just the doing of it, right? It's the knowing doing gap that I like to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. And you talked about it.
Yeah. And what's happening now is we're in this fight for inventory.
Right.
And my thought on this is, how do you create that need? And staying in front of somebody and a beautiful piece comes, say, gosh, that was such an easy experience that David made for us. We should really consider selling right now. That's how you do that.
Correct.
By staying in front of folks. Well, look, as always, and I know we could go on and on. This was a great conversation, and
thank you.
I just enjoy talking to you so much. There's so much knowledge. And not just that, but it's demonstrated through your client relationship. So thanks so much for the time, David.
You're welcome.
And I'm sure our listeners are absolutely happy every time you come and visit.
Well, and I have to say, you talked about, we're not, we only have 51 employees, but when you call my office, you can literally just hit 7 and you're connected right to my cell phone.
Yep.
So we love that relationship. And my favorite thing, I'm coaching 2 agents today, one from Naples, Florida, and the other from Austin, Texas. And that's my favorite thing to do.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much, David. Take care.
My pleasure. Thank you.